Hi,
Hello.
Heidi and Steve Olive here. We are doing our live question and answer time. Any questions you might have about relationships, whether it be relationships with yourself, relationships with your parents, your children, your spouse, your friends, your siblings, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your boss, your coworkers, any kind of relationship question that you have, we would like to help answer for you. And if we can't answer that for you, maybe somebody else out there can answer the question on the comments, or we can find the answer out for you and we can message you later. So we're just here to talk about relationships. Obviously, we are in a relationship. We have a relationship with all of you who are watching, and in some way, shape, or form, we have a relationship with you, whether we know you or we don't, because we are all connected in the relationship of humanity. So, what would you like to say, babe? Any opening statements?
It's deep. The relationship of humanity.
Thank you.
Powerful stuff.
Thanks.
I was just gonna say, don't ask any dumb questions. If you ask dumb questions, I'm gonna be like, that's stupid. And I'm just gonna like shame you and be like, nope, next. I'm just kidding.
Just kidding.
JK. No, there's no dumb questions. There's no wrong questions.
There are no stupid questions. And I guess we can talk a little bit about our relationship so that maybe that might inspire some people to ask questions. Don't be shy. Feel free to comment. If you're commenting and we can't see your comment for some reason, call one of us and we'll answer your question for you.
It might be challenging if you call Heidi's phone and she has to answer it while we're doing
phone that we're recording on, but you can call Steve's number. So let's say that Steve and I have a singularly unique relationship. We barely knew each other when we got married. We never dated. We got married after being engaged for 5 weeks and
living in two separate states.
Living in separate states.
I was in Texas and she was in Florida, so
we only saw each other in person twice before we got married.
Right.
And we never kissed until our wedding day. We have a very unique relationship, but it's not to say that we're doing it right and anyone else is doing it wrong, because everybody's relationship is going to be completely unique to them with every different person that they're in relationship with. So I don't recommend getting married to someone that you don't know, like Steve and I did, just because that's,
it's definitely a road less traveled, but
yeah, it's not the only way to do it, and it's not necessarily even a recommended way to do it.
But for us, it was the perfect way. Yeah. And, some of the reasons behind that, howdy Manuel, what's up Ryan, Archie? The reason behind that is because me personally, I had just seen so many crappy relationships full of drama and just ridiculous backbiting nonsense. I mean, we see it all the time. And so I just decided I was not going to deal with any of that, and I didn't want to have like a years of courtship before getting married or whatever. And so to me, it was basically commitment or single. And I was actually single for, over a decade, and I don't think I dated anybody, and I was content, and so I think that's a key. The way we got married is definitely different, but the reason it worked so well is because we were both content. Like, she was happy being who she was, and being single, and wasn't, looking or being desperate for a relationship. And I was in the same boat, and so when it was time, I just, we were basically like, okay, cool, let's just make a lifetime commitment.
So we have a couple questions. One of them is asking about the beard grooming time, and does that take away any of the quality time that we spend together? And to be honest, that's a good question, but this beard is 100% all natural, and it doesn't take any kind of grooming whatsoever. Yeah. So to answer that question, no. All of his time can be dedicated to me because...
Great question, by the way, though. That is a great question because that brings us to another interesting part of the relationship.
True. Also, to answer the other question here,
what is that?
We've been married for 7 years.
Oh, yeah. July 26th.
This year, we've been married for 8 years. So July 26th, we'll be married for 8 years. Yeah. So part of our story, our relationship story, we actually met because I was dating a friend of Steve's,
which is always a good running joke.
And we both love that person and care about that person, and he's a great guy. But it just wasn't meant for he and I to be together, and that's okay. It's totally cool because he's happily married and has a little boy, and Steve and I are obviously very happily married. So basically, we didn't know each other at all. I got introduced to him through this guy that I was dating, and we just met that one time. Steve was living in Minnesota. I was living in Florida, and we didn't talk again for 3 years. And the only way that we actually started talking again is Steve saw me on Facebook and saw that I was going to be at a funeral in Texas. And he said, well, I actually live in Texas, so if you need anything, let me know. I didn't really need anything, so I was like, that's okay, but if you ever need anything, you can let me know. And
I told you specifically, I said, I know what it's like, losing somebody, because I had lost a brother to suicide. So I said, there's basically not any fancy words that can make anything better. But, if you need somebody to listen, somebody that's, understands from firsthand experience, And that's what I meant, It wasn't like a weird backroom come online or anything like that. I had no intention whatsoever. So anyways, yeah.
And so he actually called me that night, and we talked for like 6 hours on the phone.
Yeah.
And then we talked every day after that for, I guess, that was in March that we started talking, and we got married in July. And we didn't get engaged until June. So it was very rapid, fast-paced relationship. But so
tell them about the beard
basically thing. I've always been attracted to guys with beards for some reason, and I had never even dated anyone with a beard, or really, even been asked out by a guy with a beard or anything. So,
and just to tell you, I used to hate facial hair. Like before we got married, I would have lived in Florida. I would have mostly big head and clean shaven face, and I would just be like, facial hair is dumb. Like seriously, I was like a beard hater and had no desire for it whatsoever. And then probably a month or two before we got married, and when I was staying in Texas, going to this church, Deliverance Bible Church or whatever, I had gray hair as well. By the way, I got my first gray hair at 16, so I have like salt and pepper hair. Probably can't really see it, but that was another thing that I had no idea. She didn't tell me this, but like her ideal perfect man was not only bearded, but then salt and pepper hair. That was like a huge, something that she really liked. I had no idea. And I'd been clean shaven pretty much for most of my life, and literally couldn't even grow a beard even if I wanted to. Like, it'd be pathetic. And all of a sudden I just had, without her saying anything, the desire to just, overwhelming desire to like stop shaving. Like out of the blue. It was weird.
We were living in 2 different states, so I had no idea that he was growing a beard, and I had no idea that he had salt and pepper hair because I'd only ever seen him with a shaved head. And so he called me on the phone one night, I think it was in May, and he was like, yeah, he's like, people are making fun of me, calling me grandpa. I was like, why? And he said, because I'm growing a beard and my hair is salt and pepper, I'm growing my hair out. And I was just like, what? That's crazy. And anyway, so that's just one of the signs that we had that, you know, that it was meant to be. That seems like it's kind of a silly, kind of shallow thing to get married based on. But it wasn't that we got married based on, but it was one of the factors that kind of just concreted the whole relationship for me. Just knowing that my desires were coming, even the silly desires of, you know, salt and pepper, hair and beard, those small desires are important too. And so if you guys have any questions, feel free to type them in the comment box. If not, we'll just keep kind of talking about our relationship. And
so the deal is, I just wanted to say something about that. Like, you know, you're saying, you know, small, silly confirmations, which I know what you mean, but the reality is there's no such thing as anything that's small or silly. Like, the kind of the point of why we want to do this is because we want to get you guys to see your own value, right? So, really, before you can love anybody else, you have to love yourself and you have to accept yourself. And it's like, believe me, I'm a slow learner. I'm 41. It literally took me like 37 years to just barely start. You know what I mean? It's only a few years to where I'm basically like, oh yeah, I like myself. Yeah, cool. I like the way I look. I like, you know. And we joke around about that. The Saturday Night Live skit, like talking in the mirror, whatever whatever his name was. I'm good enough. You know, I'm beautiful. You know, but in reality, like, if you don't love yourself, then you're going to attract, right, a partner or people around you that are not going to respect you, right, because you don't respect yourself. So it's just basically like a, you know, universal law. You're just going to attract who you are. And the old saying, you can't give what you don't have. So if you don't respect yourself, then other people aren't going to respect you. I mean, and I know this from personal experience. So, I mean, you know, I've had all kinds of bad relationships, and thankfully, you know, you just end up learning eventually. You know what I mean? And so then you become ready, right, and not accept anything other than the best, right? And so that's really, we both just decided that we weren't going to settle for another mediocre relationship or another drama filled, you know what I mean, arguing all the time, yelling at each other, you know, whatever it entails, or, you know, someone who's just jealous all the time, constantly, whatever it may be, wanting to check your phone, you're always thinking you're doing something, you know, you're not. So, you know, if you trust yourself and you love yourself, then you're going to draw other people, right, that are going to respect you and love you and treat you the way you deserve to be treated, right? And so, you know, our message is, you know, if you love yourself, that's the number one important thing. Then, right, then you can finally break the cycle if you've had cycles like many, many people. It doesn't make you less of a person or a bad person. It's just life circumstances, and most of us are on autopilot. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you don't have to have another bad relationship. If you're in a relationship now, that can be changed, right? By you changing yourself, by changing your thoughts, by starting to love and appreciate yourself. And if you're, you know, with somebody that doesn't appreciate you, one thing I would do if you're in a partner that you don't think appreciates you, if you kill them with kindness, so to speak, you know what I mean? So if you appreciate them, right? So if you have a, you know, a husband or a boyfriend that's, you know, like a lot of women complain, just plays video games all day, ignores you, watches football, whatever may be the case, you know. For me, I'm not really a big fan of like sports. I just follow UFC. That's about it, really. And haven't had a gang system in a while. But, you know, when I was younger, I definitely, you know, did that for a long time. So, you know, instead of, say, arguing or bringing it up repeatedly, you could just end up, you know, the advice I tell people that have relationship issues is treat that person as if they're already acting perfect, right? So, meaning like treat them as if they're already doing what you would like them to do, as in treat them as if they're behaving perfectly, whether they're not, you know. And so, if you treat them a lot that way, a lot of them, they kind of rise up to the situation like, oh, I'm getting like undeserved good treatment here. And a lot of times that's a better way to change than, say, nagging. And guys nag too, so it's not one or the other, it's both. But anyways, here's a question.
Yeah, so we have another question. How did both your spiritual journeys compare to each other's? That is a really good question. And I'll answer it by saying no one ever stops that journey. So
Right.
we started that journey together um, as one, even though we had already had our own separate journeys together, or separately, sorry, um, before that. So both of us were raised in Christian homes, and Steve's story is pretty radical. If you haven't read his book, um, you want to tell him about your book a little bit?
Oh, a little book plug from Skinhead to Saint, a true
So,
story of awakening. Anyways, it's on Amazon, but it talks
yeah.
about, you know, how I was raised, and then, I got into white supremacy, and I was a white supremacist skinhead for a while, and then, like, on acid, I had this wild spiritual experience. Short book, it's 98 pages, but it's a pretty powerful story, I think. But
Yeah. So, and I have my own story that I haven't written in a book, but
yet,
my story, it wasn't anything like Steve's story, but I had my own story of, um, you know, kind of coming to the knowledge of God through Christianity. And, since we've come together, we've developed into one singular unit that um, is constantly feeding off of each other and growing from each other. And the things he learns spiritually speaking, I get to benefit from. And the things that I learn spiritually speaking, he gets to benefit from. And that's brought us to a place of um, just realization, basically, that we are all one. Just like I said at the beginning of this video, that we're all in a relationship, and it's the relationship of humanity. And that relationship does not exclude the one creator, the universe, or the uh, source. A lot of people call it different things, but our idea of God is definitely different from before we were together, and different from when we first got married, but it's no less potent and no less relevant in our life as we develop and grow together in our spirituality. Do you want to add anything to
yeah.
that?
So I mean, that was a really great question from Thomas and Dwayne. What's up? Hi, Candy. Love you too. Um, very many of you have raised, in Christianity, just because this is America. A lot, Americans or whatever. Now, if you're in the Far East, most likely it was probably Buddhism or Hinduism. I mean, a lot of it is where your location. You know what I mean? So how you were raised. And for me personally, I mean, I was raised, Christian from, a baby. My family was, raised. My mom, led me to Jesus at like 5 years old or whatever. Didn't really understand it. And so for me, right now, my kind of like life thing is know myself, question everything. And so, I was I'm kind of like an extremist personality and very like dogmatic. So when we met, I had already been 2 years of Bible school. I was at this, church, Deliverance Bible Church was kind of like an underground church. The pastor was like all tatted up like me and stuff. And so I felt accepted as far as their appearance and stuff. But it was very like, preach a lot on sin and judgment and hell or whatever. And, everybody's on their, path and where they're at. And at the time that I ended up leaving that basically just because of like the dogma was so strong, you know what I mean? So it was like every time you come to church, it was just, talking about, how much of a sinner humanity is and how basically upset God is with you and how you haven't done enough, you know what I mean? And so this was basically like the gist of the message. And so, it's hard to have, it's hard to have it's hard to have good self-esteem. It's hard to feel that you're enough when you're being told, by anybody on a constant weekly basis that you're not enough, you know.
And just to like point back to that question, I know I didn't answer the full question, but the last part of it, basically, I was in a very different place than Steve was when we got married, as far as our thoughts and ideas about what spirituality looked like. And I was coming from like a very, very hippie, like hippie love, everything is one and love and
the white
happiness.
supremacist skinhead and the hippie get together, you know.
And so basically, to answer your question, we were not necessarily on the same page. And I, out of respect for Steve's opinions and thoughts, I did kind of go along with his kind of path at that time. And we did that for not very long before I think we both realized that.
Yeah, only maybe like a year and a half before we actually decided to basically like leave church permanently. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
that wasn't our path, and we realized that together. And for him, I think it was a lot harder for him to leave church because he had been in church a lot more than I had in his life.
I was like highly vested into it.
And I could take church or leave church, but
yeah, so literally the deciding point, and I will say, like, you know, as a wife, in my opinion, like Heidi couldn't have done it any better because I was very headstrong, right? You know, and a lot of people that, you know, and this could go anything. This could be outside of religion or anything, but when you think you're absolutely right and you know it, you know what I mean, beyond the shadow of a doubt, and that's kind of where I was, to where everybody else is wrong and I'm right. You know what I mean? This, you know, down to Bible interpretation, down to everything, you know. And so Heidi just basically quietly just, you know, just sat there and, I mean, supported me regardless of how crazy some of my beliefs were. And eventually, Dwayne, Shambo, that's hilarious. You're making me laugh and having flashbacks, you know. But she basically just loved me regardless of all the stupid things that I believe that were totally destructive, right? And instead of arguing with me, she was, you know, she would just, I mean, most of the time, like, not even question it and just, and the things is, I studied the Bible, and I mean, like I said, an extremist, like, read the Bible for hours a day sometimes, you know what I mean? Because, you know, I wanted to know whatever more or better than other people. So, I mean, I knew the Bible, I would read it like crazy, and it was like, you know, honestly, like a legalistic thing, but it was, you know, I wouldn't admit it at the time, but it was like, well, you got to go to church, and it was like everybody was in a contest to who knew more, prayed more, fasted more, blah, blah, blah. You know, but the final straw, so to speak, of me leaving, and it was like a very, you know, small, tight-knit church and community, so I knew leaving that, I would basically be leaving all, you know, all those people. And I knew that we, you know, the contact would be over, at least for quite a while, if ever, you know. But literally, I mean, Heidi was pretty much to the point of getting physically sick from the literal guilt and condemnation that was coming from the pulpit and the preacher. I mean, it was so heavy. It was literally like a cloud that you could like cut with a butter knife, you know. And I mean, he's an awesome guy and he loves God and he was just doing the best, you know, he has with his knowledge, you know. And I don't blame him or anything. I mean, it was up to us to sit there and listen to it, you know. But I had to decide at that point to be a husband and to protect my wife, in my opinion, you know. So I just said, this is it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not going to put her under this garbage anymore. And, you know, and I was tired of hearing it too. But if I was single, I might still be there because I'm like, oh, I'm tough, you know, whatever. I'll just brush it off, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like a weird macho thing. It's like, why take the punishment of condemnation and guilt from religion? It's stupid. Like, so anyways, that was like leaving. But even after we left, I literally, and this is hilarious to me now, like almost 7 years later or whatever, this is laughable to me now, but I was so brainwashed for the first 4 Sundays of not going to church anymore. I still thought there was a pretty good chance that I was going to burn in hell forever because I, you know, left church, you know. because, according to a lot of Christians, if you leave church, you leave God. Ridiculous. There's no biblical proof for it. And believe me, I know because I've read. I mean, there isn't, but when you believe something, it's like you almost ignore facts a lot of times, and so that's what I did. But I would just say ridiculous things about like I forget, a rapper or whatever would come on, and me and my church buddy would condemn him to hell because he wasn't a Christian like we thought or whatever. And Heidi would just be like, "Well, I don't know if you know that he's going to hell or whatever." And I would literally like look at Heidi and like berate her like she was stupid and be like, "No, you don't even hardly read the Bible. Like, I know he's going to hell because, I read the Bible, so."
Yeah, I remember one specific instance.
I think it was Little John or something. Yeah.
We were riding in the car and some song came on and I said, he was saying, "Oh, yuck," or whatever you said. And I said, "Isn't he one of God's children too?" And Steve was like, "Nope, there are those children of the devil and children of God." And I was like, "Oh."
He's a devil child.
And I think I started crying because I was like, I didn't know that some of us were children of the devil. Like,
lucky for you, you married me and I could inform you.
That was news to me, and it didn't resonate with my spirit at all, so it was confusing. But speaking on relationships, let's get back to our main topic, which is relationships. And like Steve has done a really good job of, he already had a very solid relationship with himself before he and I were married. And I think I did too, to a certain extent, because I did spend a lot of time alone. And so both of us had become content with ourselves before we took the step of creating a life together. And I think that's important in every relationship in life, is to know yourself first so that you can actually have something to offer and have something to be able to receive from the people that you're building relationships with. So,
the other person that you're in a relationship with, they can't complete you. So this is the lie of like whatever romantic movies and stuff like this, as if like that person out there is going to like fill all the holes in your heart or your soul. This is not true, So the reality is the best and most, enjoyable relationship is when you have two people who, not perfect. I mean, there's not a perfect human being on the planet. That's not even the goal. But people that are aware that if there's a problem, then you look within instead of, and I don't mean like in a legalistic, judgmental way, like I don't wake up, judging myself like, what did I do wrong today? I'm laid back as it is. But meaning like, if I'm angry at somebody, my first reaction now is to go, why did I react that way? Why is there something in me that's angered? Instead of like, a lot of us, and I've done it for most of my life, is like we always put blame on somebody else. Oh, I can't believe them, that, oh, they're wrong, this or that. You know what I mean? And, that's why a lot of marriages fall apart and divorces and your relationships collapse, because you end up, just, oh, it's them. You know what I mean? And, there you are in your, 20th relationship, and, you're still not looking in, they're still not, examining yourself, just, hey, maybe there's an issue that's in you, and maybe that's why the relationship isn't working.
So
it's never a guilt thing,
right.
It's great to be able to know what the problem is so you can fix it. That's all.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, that's great. Like, good example. And I would give the example for myself of, anytime I find myself judging someone else for something, it's really a judgment that I have against myself in some area. It doesn't have to be the exact same thing, but there's something deeper that I'm actually judging myself about. And an example of this is, I was watching a teaching, and this girl was using incorrect grammar while she was teaching, and I thought to myself in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, this girl can't even use proper grammar, blah, blah, blah. I was like judging her in my mind for using improper grammar. And then I stopped myself because I was like, really, that's just an insecurity that I have that stems from way back when I was a child of people telling me that I wasn't very good at reading. So, really, like, everything has a stem inside of you that, like, every time you make a judgment, it's something that you're judging yourself about, that you are either blinding yourself to, or you're super insecure about it, or whatever the case may be. Anytime you judge someone, no matter what kind of relationship it's in, it's gonna stem back to you. And that's where the mirror comes into play, where you can look in the mirror and you can be like, why do I feel this way about this person? Oh, it's because I have some unresolved issues inside of me that I need to work out. Not only that, but I was going to say that judging, and then I was going to say something else about.
Well, I was just going to say, as another example, you know, as far as her reading, it's funny because there's so many things that happen, like, you know, up until we're, you know, 5, 6 years old. They say most of our beliefs are kind of set in stone. So, you know, we think, oh, yeah, it's no big deal. Like if your parents, you know, oh, we can't afford this, you know, or if you came up broke or whatever, you end up, you know, having that kind of mentality your whole life. Same thing if your mom told you were dumb or whatever. So Heidi, before we were married, you know, I mean, she had that thing about reading, so she thought she wasn't a good reader. So my response to that was, and because I'm like a voracious reader, so, you know, if you've been on my friends list for a while, I post books all the time. I love to read. I mean, I'm always have a stack of books to read. You know what I mean? I love to read. I just love it. And so Heidi was comparing herself to me, somebody who's been reading continuously for years, a lot, you know. And so she had already thinks she's not a good reader, right? So then she compares herself to reading on my level when she hasn't had the time and hours. Now, that'd be like me comparing my guitar playing to Yngwie Malmsteen when I know 8 chords, right? And I'm trying to learn guitar and can't play 2 songs. It's ludicrous, you know, but it's what a lot of us do, right? So comparing is like a horrible thing, but we do it, you know what I mean? And it's just it's not valid because we're all so different. So my response to her was, no, you're not a bad reader at all. You're a great reader. You just haven't practiced enough. If you read more, you'll become a better reader. And all you got to do is prove it to yourself by reading more. So she said, oh, you know, I think she kind of thought to herself, well, that kind of makes sense, maybe logically. And so she decided to read 2 books a month or a book a month or something.
Last year, I committed to reading 1 book a month, and I think I read 15 books last year, and almost all of them were like over 500 pages.
Yeah, like big books, you know.
Go me.
Yeah, so that's like another like small example, but basically, I mean, I could have reacted as just like, yeah, well, nobody's as good a reader as me. You know what I mean? And I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying she's so good at never putting me down, never condemning, even if I am weak in an area, right? So as a man, that makes me want to perform better. It's just the way it works for whatever reason. You know, I don't know why it is the way it works, but I think men, you know, I think we crave to be needed and praised. You know, we want to, you know, feel valued, and women want to feel comfort. You know, they want to feel secure. They want to feel loved. You know what I mean? So a woman may, you know, want to talk more. Dudes are like, ugh, you know, how was your day? Cool. You know what I mean? So, you know, just understanding that, you know, Heidi appreciates something as simple as like snuggling. I mean, you know, her love language is touch. So cuddling is probably better than me giving her $100 to go shopping. You know what I mean? But it's interesting because all these things we didn't know when we first got married because we were basically strangers. So it was an adventure, you know what I mean? Like basically 2 strangers just decided to pretty much live together, you know. And like I said, it's definitely a unique way to do it, and I don't even recommend anybody copy anybody, right? So because then you're just basically not being true to yourself. You're just doing something because somebody else does it. So
along the same lines of that, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them and ask.
Hi, sis.
We will be. Hi, Chris. We'll be.
Hi, Tiffany.
We're probably gonna bring it to a close if nobody starts asking any questions. But I did want to say that, like Steve was talking about comparison, and I think that comparison is a definite killer to relationships. And
that's hilarious.
So
punch your own nuts. Dwayne says, I gotta read this comment for everybody who hasn't seen it because it's priceless. I want to punch my own nuts with how cute y'all are. Dwayne, that's like the greatest comment ever.
So, comparison is a killer to all relationships. Right. No matter if you're comparing yourself to other people or you're comparing other people to other people. No matter how you're using comparison it's just never a good idea. Not only comparison, but also I would say that competition. Like, this can be applied to every area of life, but I can honestly say that in relationships, there is no such thing as competition. Right. You are in competition with no one. No one is in competition with you. And you really and truly never have to feel like you're competing for anything in any area of your life. And especially in relationships. You don't have to compete with the person you're in a relationship with. You don't have to compete with yourself. You don't have to compete with the people that are not in relationship with the people that you want to be in relationship with. I just can't stress that enough, that competition is an illusion, and the reason competition is an illusion is because we are all one in the relationship of the human race. So true. Let's see. Good stuff, guys. Y'all are great. Thanks, Dwayne.
You're great, Dwayne.
I appreciate all you guys watching. I appreciate you guys, asking a couple questions there. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to contact Steve or myself on Facebook. You can...
Also, let me just say real quick, if you're single, you're not less of a person because you're not in a relationship. Single can be the best, most funnest time of your life. You just have to make it that way. So, a lot of people have relationships, you have kids, responsibilities that other people don't have. A lot of people can't travel. When you're single, you should live it up. You should go travel, you should experience life, you should do like everything you want to do. Like, while it's cheaper, while you have the freedom to do it, you know what I mean? While you don't have to discuss it, you know what I mean, with a partner or, ask permission. I say that lightly because, like, with Heidi, anything either one of us wants to do, like, it's always yes. Like, and with Heidi, she don't ever, like, spend money or buy something, so, but, like, it was like a, $10 scratcher or something she asked me to buy on Amazon. I'm like, yes. Just because, like, whatever she wants, then I'm going to basically, if it's in my power, I'm going to do it. And it's simple stuff. It's not like, spending thousands of dollars online or whatever. It's like rare. But, if she wants to, do something that's in her heart, I'm always going to say yes. It's just simple because why? I like to see her happy, And with her, it's the same thing with me, But I just want to reiterate that if you're single, it's not like, oh man, hopefully when one day you get the perfect partner, then you'll be valuable. And unfortunately, like society and family and parents and mothers and grandmothers, and especially I guess women get it a lot too, probably even more than men, like, oh man, you're getting older, you're almost 30 years old, and I need grandkids, and oh man, you need to find a good man,
Something else.
That's nonsense.
Something else that I wanted to talk about a little bit before we sign off here is in any relationship situation, no matter if it's your relationship with yourself or your spouse or whatever it might be, almost all of the problems that you experience are going to stem from fear.
Yep. Probably
And
99.99.
if you are finding it difficult to get over your problems, take a look at what's behind those problems, and you're going to find fear at the root of that. And the only way to eradicate fear is through facing the fear.
Right.
So I encourage you to kind of get real with yourself about the true, deeper reasons behind arguments or, whatever it is that you're facing in your relationship issues. Fear is going to be at the root of all of those. And you have to be able to face your fear in order to get past it. And that could look like so many different things.
Yeah, it could look like a million different things, but
I did want to share. I keep saying I want to share one more thing before.
I was like, one more 45-minute story, and then we're going to cut this off.
No, I did want to share this because this is super important to, especially if you're in a marriage relationship or a committed relationship with a partner. Something that Steve and I have that's unique, I think, to a lot of relationships is, and some of you might not know this, but I have to put my life in Steve's hands every day because I'm on a machine that keeps me alive. And so if he isn't there to help me and to hook me up to my machine and to do all of these things correctly for me, then I would die. Okay? So, in a literal sense, Steve has saved my life on more than one occasion. And the fact that we share that experience together, and we have shared that experience together for a while now, I think that it what is the word? It makes our relationship more concrete because it solidifies, that's the word I wanted. It solidifies the preciousness of every moment that we have together.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the mindset of gratitude and appreciation for every single moment that you have to spend with the people you're in relationship with, then what are you focusing on? Most of the time, if you're not focused on gratitude for what you have, you're going to be worrying about what you're going to get tomorrow, or you're going to be fearful about what you've gotten in the past. And you're not going to be focusing on this one moment that you have right now with yourself or with the people that you're in relationship with. And that, I will have to say, is probably the number one key to a happy and healthy and joyful relationship in any area of your life is gratitude.
Yeah. When you're grateful, you can't be grateful for your life and then be worrying, right, about the future or the past or anything else. Simultaneously, you can't do it. So we practice gratitude like every day. You know what I mean? Every night before we go to bed, on a piece of paper, we write all the things that we're grateful for.
And not just for each other.
Right.
For everything and anything.
Right, for anything and everything, And so most of us, our main struggle is, and for most of my life, I've been this way and just realizing, that it doesn't need to be that way. Instead of being happy right now, right? We're not content and we're like, oh man, as soon as I make such and such dollars, then I'll be happy and then I can do this. Oh, when I find the perfect woman or guy, then I'll be happy. Or when I get a job promotion or when I learn this or do this. Instead of just enjoying life and enjoying the process on the way to success. Like me, I'm huge as far as studying, being the best version of myself, learning things. I love to study the subconscious mind. I'm all about success, but if I'm not enjoying like today and my relationship and everything that's happening in life right now, then I'll just be miserable. And the thing is, I'll always be reaching. That's the thing. Like to achieve and have goals is absolutely wonderful. I'm huge on that. But if you're not content, like happy where you're at while you're seeking to be, to improve yourself, then your whole life is just going to be like, oh, it sucks because I'm not over there.
Yeah.
It's always going to be some magical place you're not.
And that's the balance. And that's the place that we're all trying for.
Sure.
That's
the challenge.
You are able to set goals and achieve them, but simultaneously, you're able to be content with what you already have been given. And that is, I feel like gratitude is a huge proponent of being able to stay in that place and be in that place forever. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah. So I don't think there's probably, there's not very many, maybe love, that's it. But anything more powerful than gratitude, like being grateful, which I think they just coincide together, So I would encourage anybody and everybody to start a practice of gratefulness,
Yeah, that's one practical thing that you can do on a daily basis that will improve every relationship in your life.
I promise it will make your life better, period, because,
guaranteed.
All of us are tempted to complain, right, about so many different things, and of course, anytime you go on Facebook, you just see just people complaining about relationships, complaining about life, complaining about, silly things, major things, right? So, but if you're grateful, then you can't be grateful and you can't be positive and negative at the same time. So you can't be, saying, oh, I'm so grateful that I have a car. I'm so grateful I have a house, a roof over my head. I'm not homeless. I'm so grateful that I can breathe, that I have my legs, my arms, my eyes, that I can smell. It's like there's literally people in other parts of the world that not only poor, that are basically wondering if they're going to die next week because they don't have the money for food, but they're missing limbs, right? They don't even have electricity, much less Wi-Fi, so they couldn't even enjoy this conversation.
And at the same time, those people still have an immeasurable list of things that they can be grateful for.
Right.
Even though they have maybe a smidgen, a fraction of what it is that you have, they're still, they still have the same opportunity to be grateful for the things that they do have as well. And so I'll challenge you guys. Go ahead and whatever relationship you're trying to build, I want you to write 12 things about that person that you're grateful for. And see that it doesn't change your mindset about them, their mindset about you. Like, if you felt like you should, then you could give that to them and be like, listen, these are the things that I am grateful for about you. And that could totally open up a new totally new dimension to your relationship.
Yeah, and if you're single, do it about yourself.
Exactly.
Because that's the number one relationship anyways. If you're not going to be happy and accept yourself, then it's going to be rough for whoever you decide to partner with.
True.
That's just the reality because, when you're not happy with yourself, then you have insecurity, then you have jealousies, right? Jealous of another person. You don't trust them because of your insecurities, and it's just a nightmare. So, and we're not, better than anybody else at all, not even close. But through our many, many relationship mistakes, we've probably just learned a few keys. Gratitude, one of the biggest ones, and just love, just very simply, instead of when you want to point out, right, your partner's faults and they're doing something wrong, instead of remind yourself all the stuff that they do right, right? Because I can guarantee there's a lot. Otherwise, you wouldn't be with them. It's like, if they didn't have good qualities, no matter how rough your relationship may be, then you guys probably wouldn't have got together, So look on the bright side, not to be cheesy, but
gratitude, always. So I will open it up one more time for any questions if you guys don't have any questions in the next few seconds, we're going to go ahead and sign off because we've been on here for a while. And we want to give the people who missed the beginning the opportunity to watch this again on Facebook.
Get all the way to the beginning because there's some jewels up in here. That's good.
Some gold.
That's right.
So anyway, anybody have any questions, any comments? Please feel free to share this if you've gotten any wisdom from it, or if you've felt that it helped you in any way, shape, or form. Thank you for watching, everyone who's watched. I think there's a ton of people watching right now, so I'm really excited about that. Feel free to share this video with anybody so that they can benefit from it too. Feel free to like it, throw up some hearts and likes and stuff. And then
this is the first and only free one. They're going to be $100 a piece after this, so you guys got in early, so enjoy those freebies while they last.
Anyway, so and if we get a lot of feedback from this, maybe we'll do this again, maybe even on a regular basis. Answer some hard questions. Thank you, guys. Oh, look at all the hearts.
Whoa, exploding hearts.
Heart overload. Thanks, guys. We're going to go ahead and go, and we will see you soon.
Peace.
Love you guys.